Okay, so we're now on to proportion and recipes, so let's get into it. So you can see below, you've got the recipe for cupcakes is shown below. So you've got cupcakes here to make for 5 people, and these are all the ingredients. And the question is saying how much of each ingredient will you need for 15 people. So in real life, this will apply. Okay, you're going to be given a recipe often, and often you want to either make it for more people or for less people. In this case, you want to go from 5 up to 15. And here, it's just a question of upscaling. To get from 5 to 15, you can multiply by 3, because 5 times 3 is going to make enough for 15 people as you want. So you've got to go and multiply all of your ingredients amount by 3. Okay, so you've got to go and times all of these amounts here, times them by 3, times them by 3, okay, because then you're going to be making enough for 15 people, and that's it. So this one, you know what, I'm going to go and type it up to make it a little bit neater. That should be good. I'll try and do it as quickly as I possibly can. So 200 grams times 3 is going to give you 600 grams of butter. Oh, that's gone probably a little bit too big in font size. There we go, that's probably better. Let's try and make it all line up nicely. There we go. And then 200 grams of plain chocolate, we're timesing that by 3, so it's going to be 600 grams of plain chocolate also. Of plain chocolate. And then 200 grams of brown sugar, again timesing it by 3, is going to give you 600 grams of brown sugar. 600 grams of brown sugar. And then 2 eggs times by 3 is going to give you 6 eggs. So there we go. Let's get these in. 6 eggs, and then 1 teaspoon of vanilla times it by 3. Going to be 3 teaspoons of vanilla. So TSP means teaspoon of vanilla. There we go. And then we've got 250 times by 3, which is going to give you 750 grams. So 750 grams of self-raising flour. Okay, and it's gone really small in font size. Apologies for that, but that is it. Okay, we're just upscaling to get for 15 people, and this is it. Okay, hopefully you can kind of read that all okay. But that is it for the first one, and these do get more difficult as we're going to see with the next couple of examples. So this time we've got, yeah, well, it says up here, right? Again, we've got a recipe below for cupcakes for making 5, but this time it's saying how much of each ingredient for 12 people. And this time, to go from 5 to 12, it is more difficult, okay? But up here I put, it can be really useful to find the amount needed for one person. And like with ratio, where you get something in the form, I don't know, 1 to something, it's kind of similar thing here. So if you can find the amount for one person, you can upscale really, really easily, okay? So there you go, you can upscale much more easily. So what I'm going to go and do here is go and actually divide all of these by 5, because that will get you enough for one person. So I'm going to go and, right here, I'm going to divide by 5, because if I do 5 divided by 5, that's going to make me enough. It's going to make me cupcakes for one person. Okay, so I'm going to go and divide all of these numbers here, first of all, by 5. Divide by 5, divide by 5, divide by 5, all the way down here. And actually, this time I'm just going to write it in pen because it might be a little bit quicker. So there we go. So once I've got enough for one person, okay, I can then times it and upscale it more easily. So let's go through this. 200 divided by 5 is going to be 40 grams of butter. So 40 grams of butter. I try and do this as neatly as I possibly can. My handwriting isn't the best, apologies. 200 grams divided by 5 again is going to give me 40 grams of plain chocolate. I'm just going to put let's write PC, plain chocolate. 200 grams of brown sugar. So again, if you divide it by 5, that's going to give you 40 grams of brown sugar, BS. 2 eggs divided by 5. Now, it seems a little bit weird, but that's going to give you 0.4 eggs. But don't worry, because we're going to be upscaling in a second. So that's going to give you 0.4 eggs. And then we've got 1 teaspoon of vanilla divided by 5, which is going to give you 1 divided by 5 is 0.2 teaspoon of vanilla. And then at the bottom, so I'm going to move my pen pad out of the way, there we go, you've got 250 grams divided by 5 is going to give you 50 grams of self-raising flour. I'll just put SRF. Okay, so now you've got enough to make one. What I can do now to get to 12 people, which is exactly what I want, I can easily just go and upscale, because 1, if I go and times this now by 12, that's going to give me enough to make enough for 12 people, which is exactly what I want. Okay, so now I just go and times these amounts by 12, so 40, timesing it by 12, let's make a note over here, let's times all of these by 12, times it by 12 now, times everything here by 12, times it by 12, all the way to the bottom. Let's go through it. So 40 times 12 is equal to 480. So 480 grams of butter. You've then got 40 again times 12, so it's going to be 480 grams of plain chocolate, PC. I've got my grams and that's fine, good. I've then got 40 grams of brown sugar, so 480 grams again of brown sugar. And then I've got 0.4 eggs times 12. 0.4 times 12 on my calculator gives me 4.8 eggs. Okay, we'll come on to that in a second because obviously 4.8 eggs sounds a little bit ridiculous. We've then got 0.2 timesing it by 12 is going to give you 2.4 teaspoons of vanilla. And then you've got 50 grams, so 50 timesing it by 12 is going to give you 600 grams. 600 grams of self-raising flour. Now that's your answer. A few things just to note here, right, is 4.8 eggs, of course, you can't have 4.8 eggs. So in reality, a bit of common sense, what would you do here? You'd probably round this up to 5. Okay, so in reality, you'd probably say, I'm going to be using 5 eggs because 4.8 is pretty close to 5. That would make more sense. Okay, but in reality, right, if you're upscaling a recipe, that might be the case. You might not get an exact kind of amount that you want. That's just the way it is sometimes, but you might say, I want to use 5 eggs here. And then below here, 2.4 teaspoons of vanilla. Again, that's very tricky to measure. You probably just go for sort of 2, maybe 2.5, maybe 3, probably 2 or 2.5 teaspoons of vanilla. Okay, but that is it. We've just upscaled it, first of all, by dividing by 5 to get to 1, the unitary method, and then to get from 1 to 12 is really nice and straightforward. To get from 5 to 12, you can do it, okay, but it could be potentially a bit more difficult. The way that you would do it is you would do 12 divided by 5, okay, which is equal to 2.4, and you could go straight from this, from making 5 up to 12 by timesing by 2.4, because that is equal to 12 divided by 5. But I like the unitary method because I think it's pretty bulletproof. Okay, so now I think this is one that you can try, and I believe that's going to be it, for this video. So you can pause the video and you can try this one. So below you've got the recipe for Victoria sponge is shown below. We can see it over here. So you've got the Victoria sponge for making 8 people. Part A is saying how much of each ingredient do you need to make for 12 people, and then B for 3 people. Now, to get from 8 to 12, you might recognise that you can times it by 1.5, but actually I'm going to be using the unitary method first of all. I'm going to get it for 1 person, and then you can just upscale it really, really easily. Okay, so let's go and do this to make, first of all, for 1 person, to make enough for 1 person, like previously the unitary method. So this time, right, to get from 8 to 1, you've got to go and just divide by this number, 8, and divide by 8, because 8 divided by 8 is going to give you 1. So I'm going to go and divide all of these by 8, and you might get some sort of slightly weird decimals potentially, but that's going to be okay still. So we're just dividing everything by 8, dividing by 8, and then dividing by 8. So 200 divided by 8 is going to give you, that's good, 25 grams of caster sugar. I'm just going to put a CS. And then 200 grams of butter divided by 8 is going to give you 25 grams of butter. And then 4 eggs divided by 8 is going to give you half an egg, or 0.5 eggs. Okay, and then 200 grams of self-raising flour divided by 8. So 200 divided by 8 we know is 25 grams. So 25 grams of self-raising flour. You've then got 1 divided by 8 is going to give you 0.125 teaspoons of, I think it should say baking powder. That's a mistake, isn't it? Baking powder, so baking powder. And then 2 divided by 8 is 0.25, so 0.25 tablespoon of milk. Okay, now I've got to go and get, first of all, I've got to make enough for 12 people. So what I do with 1, I just go and simply times it up by 12. So I go and times all of these values here by 12 initially. Okay, so let's go and write it over here. I'm making enough for 12 people initially. I'm timesing every single value here by 12. And that's going to do that one first of all. So there we go. Okay, so 25 times by 12, we can put this into our calculator. It's going to give you 300. So 300 grams of caster sugar, and then 300 grams of butter, and then 0.5 times 12 is going to give you 6. So 6 eggs. So this one works out much more nicely this time, which is good. 25 times by 12 again is going to give you 300 grams of self-raising flour. 0.125 times it by 12 is going to give you 1.5. So 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And then 0.25 timesing it by 12 gives you 3 tablespoons of milk. Okay, so this here is enough to make your 12 people. Let's go and put it in a box so we can see what's going on. Here we go. That's the first one. And then, let's go do that last one again. Let's make it a bit more neat. There we go. And let's go and put that out. Good, perfect. And then now we want to go make enough for 3 people also below. So when we go and make enough for 3 people, let's go do that one over here. So make enough for 3. Brilliant. Over here, perfect. There we go. So now we've got to go in times. Again, making for 1 person, you want to go from 1 up to 3. So we're going to go timesing all of these values here by 3. Or what you could do actually, if you want to now, right, to get from 12 to 3, you can divide it by 4. Let's do that because that will look a little bit nicer now. So let's go and do that over here. Let's go and divide now by 4, because if I go and do 12 divided by 4, that gives me 3. So I'm going to be dividing everything here by 4. You could just do this, all of these times by 3. Up to you, it makes no difference. But I'm going to be doing 300 divided by 4, which gives me 75, let's do it in blue, why not? 75 grams of caster sugar, and then 75 grams of butter, and then 6 divided by 4 is going to be 1.5. Okay, it's a bit more awkward of eggs, but that's fine. So 1.5 eggs. And then 300 divided by 4 again is going to give me 75 grams of self-raising flour. 1.5 divided by 4 is going to give me 0.375 teaspoons of baking powder. And then 3 divided by 4 is 0.75, so 0.75 tablespoons of milk. And I've run out of room. And that is it. Let's go and put that in a bit of a box so we can see what is going on there. It would be nice. There we go, down there, across. Oh, have we got enough room here? Maybe not, but that's going to be okay. Nonetheless, let's go a little bit higher, and then just across. And there we go. Okay, so probably maybe a bit long-winded, but basically, right, the key thing here is sometimes you'll be given a bit more awkward numbers. So to get from what you're being given to what you want, I always think it's useful. If you get enough for 1 person, you can then really easily upscale it however you need to. Okay, so that's the key takeaway from this video, to be honest. And hopefully that was useful. And then on to the next video, which is still on ratio.